This one's coming in like an archetype deck. Let's see what's going on. And it's a tarot deck. It's a weird tarot deck. Okay. Yeah, it's coming in weird. We've got this guy at the forge, at the forge, at the forge, at the forge. I don't think you were doing swords. I think at the forge and thread the needle. Can this be? All right. What I'm getting is at the forge and thread the needle. Oh, the threads we weave, right? This is like, this was your skill. This was your craft. I think you were actually an art student, a very good art student who would do copies, who would forge. Seduction. You would talk people into something. You would weave a tale of deception. You would know how to do what it was to do. You would know the way of crafting the art to make it look as if it were authentic when it wasn't. You would forge copies of things. You were in the studio of somebody that was really quite good, and you would forge copies of things to hang on other people's walls. You would sometimes do portraits of other people. You were quite skilled. Like, this is you, and this is your patron. One of your patrons. This is representative of a typical patron, not the only patron. One of many. The art of seduction was something you did really, really well. I think you were a man in this past life. I think you were a man. I think you enjoyed painting. I think that you knew how to do things so well. Like, you would paint, again, I'm getting portraiture of the muse coming through. You could paint somebody's asset. Like, if you were painting me in current time, I would probably look like almost a waif, somewhat anorexic. Like, you could paint a flattering portrait of somebody in a really, really good way. You could paint and have skills to, like, I would be 50 pounds lighter at least, you know, to do a realistic thing that is beautifully done. You would have a skill to do that, and you would forge paintings. People would come to you all the time. Even if they knew they were a forgery, they would come to you because you would do portraits so well of them, and then you'd say, well, I know a such and such. You would broker in the art of the trick. You were brazen about it. Like, people knew you by reputation. You would boldly go in, boldly make offers. They knew you by reputation, and if they had a forgery of yours, then they were pleased to have it. They would probably try and pass it off as real, but if people knew if they could get a hold of you and get, wow. I should have taken art history. I don't know who you forged. I know what you forged. A lot of portraiture, a lot of arts, a lot of, wow. Why was, just tell me more. The women of the time loved a good painting. They loved a good picture of themselves, and they were demanding. They were difficult. These were high maintenance bruja. They're past the point of Karen. These are the rich bitches of the bruja that had lost some of their youth, lost some of their beauty, and they were the perfect clients for you. They were the perfect ones that needed a little bit of adventure, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of pretty and fantasy going on. And you were charming as fuck. You were a charming fucker. They would come to you in droves. You walked the world strangely. There was like two worlds you were walking. You were walking in, yes, you knew that you were there to do the portrait, to do the art, but they felt beautiful in the portrait regardless. Regardless. Your gift was that you made them feel beautiful, you made them feel vital, you made them feel young, and you would walk the world and cross through things that were tricky. They would be vulnerable around you. You knew secrets. They would, you knew who was happy or not happy in their marriage, in their life, in whatever was going on. You would paint it. And you could paint them the truth, or you could paint them a prettier truth. And for some of them, you painted a prettier truth. Some of them, it was a physically prettier truth. Some of them, you would paint them the truth of what things were, and it was prettier because they were able to talk through something with you. Again, this was a trick. This was a sacrifice of time that you made because you enjoyed the skill so much. You enjoyed their company. You enjoyed the work. You got work commissioned quite a bit too. You went where it was worth it to go. You didn't ever do anything just for cuz, like for free or anything. No. You were commissioned. You were commissioned to do some of these things as wedding gifts. Anything else about this? What's the web? In the wrong deck. Yeah. The web is what you were doing. All through here, there was a web of a social group of people, and a web that you would had all this interconnections. Threading the needle. You did this out of pure knowledge. It wasn't out of something that you claimed like you had divine talent, but you did have a divine talent for it. You did have a divine gift. You did this, and some of your work would end up in places that you wouldn't think, like in churches or things like this. And they would be surprised that it was there. People with money had connections. They would pay to the church, and there was a priest of a certain sort that would be like, okay, come paint for this one, paint for this one. He was making a pretty penny on this too. You didn't want to be found out for having your gift be the forgery, but everyone kind of knew. So what was the problem then? How come I'm getting that? There was a celebration and a victory of a soldier who'd been out of town, a really, really good soldier out of town. Oh. I think you did a portrait for a soldier who'd been out of town, comes home from the victory. I think you did the portrait of the kids. I think the portrait told the tale. Shit. I think the portrait you did of this man's child revealed that this wasn't his child, or that something on there was just not quite something in the portrait. Is it about the child, or is it about the portrait? It's about the child. The child doesn't resemble the father, and it's the portrait of the child, and you're a really good portrait artist. You've done this. You've done some sort of portrait, some sort of painting. This guy's... Her goose is cooked, is what I can say. Oh, this can't get out. Oh, this can't get out. This can't get out. The painting was put to fire. The painting was put to the fire and burned. The craft you had many secrets that you knew anyway. This is probably something you already knew, but you didn't think that there would be a problem. She probably was hoping that, it would never come out, but it did come out. And you knew her secret. That was definitely her there. She comes out again older. The secret is she had an affair with somebody. This kid is not the husband's kid. You caught it in the portrait. You caught it in the art somehow. You drew what was before you. You caught it in the art. There's wisdom and oldness, but there's a time where there's a need for going into the woods now. That's into hiding. Why are you going into hiding? There's wisdom and older, and you go into the woods. Where the sound of the city is no longer close, you go undercover. The sound of the city is no longer close. You go undercover. You go into the woods. You go into hiding with just very, very little. Nobody can find you. Some think you are dead. You burned that portrait. You burned a lot of bridges is what you did. Some think you are dead because you burned that portrait.
She's got a timeline or an era.
I think this would be after the Renaissance. It feels old. I don't know my art history well enough. There would be families and nobles, and there would be luxuries. Let me just see if I can get. There was opulence. This is after the people learned to fight with suits of armor on, but before cars. When people could still travel, but they would travel with a horse or multiple horses. So we're before the Model A. Get back in. Sorry, I came out trying to get it.
But Old West.
This is a time that's very nostalgic. People have nostalgia about this. Don't tell me any more what she says till after we're done, honey.
Cool.
Let me get back in. What did you take? You have nostalgia, but this is something you took. What did you take? We're getting the thief. What the? Where is my, you know. No matter. I need to find another tarot deck that will tell me. There we go. There they are. The Thief. This deck has a very clear image of the thief. Whether we get it or not, this is the deck I need to be in. In this deck, you see him stealing away out the window with the jewels. In this one, you see him with the swords. I'm getting that you stole a couple originals. A couple really good originals. Of value. I don't know if this is Old West. You'll have to rely on what you know better than I don't know. This is past the Renaissance time. This is a time where you would have to go to some place and go get the water. Wherever you went to different. You went to a very, very fertile land with lots of flowers. I'm getting like maybe like tulips like Denmark or Sweden or something like that. There was anxiety about this. But this is a place that would have a lot of flowers is where you went to after this stress. This was super stressful, but you took something that was worth something a lot. Anything else? Why did you go doing this? You were worried whether you'd be able to make a living doing anything else because you were gifted at this one thing. You felt like you were gifted at this one thing and this one thing. So gifted, so gifted. And then what? You're shell-shocked now because a secret's been exposed, inadvertently exposed. That's the truth of it. You were worried that the secret was inadvertently exposed, and then you'd have your goose cooked. You look back to an old time. The priest. The priest knew how to get you back to a nostalgic time to get you a reset. The priest knew how to get you a reset. How in the world? The women that you did the portraits for that really quite appreciated you and what you had done, financed part of your getaway, financed part of this going undercover and leaving. The priest, it's not quite like he passed the collection plate and said, hey, take a collection for our forger friend, but he kind of did. So you could have a life that was different, that was set somewhere else. This shows me that you set up some sort of tavern gaming place. You set up a gaming house and a tavern, some sort of thing. You went completely, it's like completely undercover, doing a different thing, honoring ales. Not what ails you, but like beers. You were reluctant to teach. You wouldn't teach. You would put your artistic and creative energy into something else. This is about that trip. You look back sometimes when you're older in life, you look back, you wonder what would happen if it had gone a little bit different. If you had only known and painted that painting a little bit different. It was a pivotal thing. It was a pivotal thing. You get the letter. There's a letter that says, hey, something's going on. There's somebody that's passing in the older country. There's an ask. There's an ask for you to come to return to do something before somebody dies and to paint something for them as an honoring thing. This is as you putting it in the window. There's an arrangement made. A partnership arrangement is made. It has to be done on the hush. It would bring down a lot if you did any much more, or if the people that were after you, your sense of favor with people had changed. So if the people that were after you found out, it was a risk. If you were to go back and do this, or to send anything back, or to do anything going back, is huge. But what you had just been building, now the structure is changing, the landscape's changing. What do we got here? $15, $16, $17, $18. This is well over 18, maybe closer to 20 years later. You do return. I'm so surprised. What was up is down, what's down is up. Who was wealthy is now no longer. The nostalgic time returns again. You've been there. Now you wish for the nostalgic time of when you were creating the ales. Now you wish for the nostalgic time of creating the ales. You go back to do this one thing. Because somebody who was young in the service of this priestess asked this of you, knew the connections, knew knew your location, knew you well enough to ask this. Was it the priest himself who had died? Or was it the other somebody that died? It was the priest himself who had died. It wasn't so much had changed. The priest wanted his portrait done by you after he passed. The younger priest asked because he knew how to reach you because of the older priest. And it's his that made it. He helped you get away. You return the favor by coming, doing the work. I don't know if this is like a funerary picture or what, but something like that you do that is nice. That would be, show him in a best light with strength. There's celebration about your return. The women are happy about your return. Some of them are still around. Some of them no. There's been stories told. And you leave again after that. You go back to the tavern again. That's complete. That's where it ends. You do what is required of you. You go where you need to go, and then you return. And it seems like a pretty good amount of distance that you return to where the tavern is, but I think you're gone for a couple of months to do this task. That's what I've got. That feels complete. Holy cow. That's what I got. Phil?
Okay, Ange.
Yeah.